Welcome back to the Mom Studio. We were just laughing at me, so.
It's a good way to start an episode with laughter.
It is. It is. I love you guys.
I love you.
I hope you know that. But to start off with, I do have a topic. I just, I don't know, I wanted to discuss it because I was listening to a podcast that discussed this article. I'm just going to tell you, it is from yourmodernfamily.com, and the article is called The Scary Truth About What's Hurting Our Kids. I'm just going to start with some of the statistics. So, just to introduce. So recently, CNN interviewed Dr. Jean Twenge, I think is how you pronounce it, author of IGEN. And it says Dr. Twenge did a research study for 25 years ago on started doing research 25 years ago. So that's when it started, on generational differences. But when 2011 and 2012 hit, she saw something that would scare her to the core. And I was like, what is it? Oh my gosh. And it said, this is the year when those having iPhones went over the 50% mark. This was also the year that more kids started to say that they felt sad, hopeless, useless, that they couldn't do anything. This is depression. They felt they felt left out and lonely. There's a 50% increase in a clinical level depression between 2011 and 2015, and then a substantial increase in suicide rate during those years. And this is right when smartphones came out, right? So what do you guys think? I mean, there's a lot more to this article, but what do you guys think? What do you think that causes that? It's like our kids have more access, but they're more depressed than ever.
Well, I think Braylee just barely got an iPhone for her birthday this year. And I think she's done really well with it, but she did mention the other day, like, all of my friends went to a movie and no one called me. Because, I mean, that stuff's happened when we were young. Like, that's always happened. Like, certain friends will get together and go and do something. But usually we didn't know. Yeah. So it was just like, oh, what did you do this weekend? We went to a movie. Like, no big deal. But these kids are seeing their friends go out and leave them out. You know, that's just one example. Mm-hmm. But I think comparison. I think, like, these kids are comparing themselves to, we've talked about this as adults. They're comparing themselves to people from around the world who look like they have a more exciting life. They go on trips. They look better. You know, they're doing the same thing that we do as adults. So I think that is one of the problems. I think another thing, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, their parents are on their phones.
Yeah.
I'll be on my phone and I'll notice like Gage is telling me a story, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I am looking at Instagram and not looking at my kid, listening to his story and interacting with him. I'm staring at my phone, so then kids are feeling like they're not being heard.
Yeah.
So I think, like, all in all, like, the kids are on their phones more, the parents are on their phones more, and that's hard.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. That's actually exactly what this article says. It says, you know, back in the day, when we would get together with our friends, it's like we're there with our friends, we're in our sweatpants, we don't have to worry about how we look, and we're just hanging out. But now it's like, you know, if you're not being invited to something, you know what everyone else is doing. You also, when you are in your group setting with your friends, you want to make sure that you look a certain way because you don't know who's going to take pictures, who's going to post, and so it creates this huge insecurity.
It's like more stuff you're putting on yourself. Like you can't just go and relax. You have to, like, even if you wear sweatpants, you have to wear cute sweatpants and do your makeup and your hair. Your messy bun has to look just right.
It's true.
Just right.
It is true.
I think we live in a world of being so connected and disconnected. It's like extreme. Like even the other night, bless my parents' heart, but me and Jackson went to go have dinner with them just to catch up. And we were sitting on the couch. I was like laying on the floor playing with Elliot, and they were sitting on the couch, and we were having this conversation, but I like looked up because it felt, you know, when people are feeding you answers, like I always know when Jackson's on his phone if he says right, because I know it's his way of answering without answering, because you can't really go wrong with that answer, right? And then I'll like peek my head around the bathroom and he's in bed. I'm like, you're not even listening to me. You're on your phone, right? And he's like, sorry. But like I was feeling like I was getting those answers from my parents, and I look up and they're like having this conversation with me, but they're like scrolling. And it's like we're so connected in this room, and they're connected on the internet with, you know, so many of their friends, but we're so disconnected because it's like you said, like we're missing the fundamentals of body language, which I think is huge in communication. You need eye contact. You need like that belly to belly, real communication. Our kids need to feel like they're being seen and not just in the room. Yeah, honey, that's great. But like you said, like eye contact, and you just feel a difference when you have a good conversation with somebody and you're pouring your heart out to them and they're looking at you and they touch you and they are nodding and they're giving you that feedback with their body language rather than, right? And I'm guilty. 100% I'm guilty. And I think, right? See, she's not listening. We do these like habitual things, and I think sometimes picking up your phone and scrolling is such a habit like anything else. Here's a trick. I want you guys to try this. If you get on your phone, I can show you this trick right now. This is a good.
Oh my gosh, is this what Callie posted the other day?
Our producer's wife, Callie, she's gonna be, you guys have seen her, she just had a baby. Okay, if you guys wanna check the time that you're on your phone, you go to settings. This is, I only know how to do it on the iPhone, so if you don't have an iPhone, I'm sorry.
I already know how much.
And then you go down to battery on your settings. You click on your battery. It will pull up basically like all your breakdown of your percentage you're on each app on your phone. Then you can hit, in the corner, you can hit this little clock and it will tell you the hours of the day that you're on that specific app. So I pulled, my mom and dad were like fighting and debating, like, no, you're on your phone more. I pulled up my dad's and my mom's. My mom was like an hour and a half on each app. My dad's was like 21 minutes. I was like, Dad, you cutie. Like thinking he was
good.
Yeah, I thought so. But when you see that in front of you and you're like, I'm spending this portion of my day, let alone sleeping, eating, like this, you know, active part of my day on my phone doing this, even though it's our job, like I'm not working on my phone for that amount of time. That was like, okay, I need to change something.
Yeah, it makes me sick to my stomach to think of the amount of time that I spend on my phone, and not just with my kids. Like even Winston and Layla, like I'll put toys out and sit on the floor with them and I'll watch them and look at my phone instead of just like actively playing with them.
Yeah, like connecting.
Yeah.
It really, it does. And we all, I mean, I do it. I definitely do it. And that's why when I read this article, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make so many changes. I'm just going to, there was a few more things that they said that really surprised me. There was another study that was done by a therapist, Victoria Brudet, who said 1 in 5 children, now 1 in 5 children have mental health problems. 1 in 5 children have mental issues. It's starting in like 5th grade. They're saying there are, you know, elementary school kids cutting themselves every day. You know, it's happening so early. And this started when we got smartphones. 43% increases in ADHD, 37% increase in teen depression, and 200% increase in the suicide rate in kids 10 to 14 years old. And I just thought, what in the crap are we doing to our kids? And here's just, they just did a breakdown list of kind of why this is happening. Says, today's children are being deprived of the fundamentals of healthy childhood, which are emotionally available parents, because we're distracted ourselves. We're paying attention to social media more than we're paying attention to what's going on in the lives of our kids. Clearly defined limits and guidance. Responsibilities.
Going off of that, how easy is it just to hand your kid the phone? Like, just watch this for a minute while I get this done. And you just like detach and like there's no guidelines. It's like, oh, just, you know, go distract yourself for a minute so I can get this done.
Yes, and I'm totally guilty of that, you know, and I've had times where I try to set limits and then I kind of go off the rules, and it's like
screen time.
Well, and I think also when we're distracted by our phones, we're not putting in the effort to teach our kids as much as, you know, we're distracted. So it's like, just stop doing that. Instead of being like, listen, you need to stop doing this, and this is like, put your phone down and actually like let your kid understand why they need to stop doing these things. Well, I think when we're distracted too, we're not noticing how much time they're actually spending on their phone or TV or whatever.
Yeah. And I know I use like my phone as a zone out. It's like sometimes I do just get overwhelmed with being a parent, and I feel like, oh my gosh, they're arguing again. I don't even want to go out there and stop them because this is exhausting and I don't know what to say. And it's like you just kind of, you know, it's easier not to engage, you know, and not that we wouldn't do that if we didn't have cell phones. Like sometimes we do that anyway, but you know, back in the day it talks about how it wasn't always cell phones. It's like parents always have their ways of tuning out, you know, sitting in front of the TV for hours at a time. I remember doing that, you know, before, and I just think, you know, it's the things that we do to take ourselves out of living our life, and not that the cell phone is the only thing that does that, but it is a huge one for us and for our kids now.
It's always like right here.
Because it's always
so
right
easy to just be like right there.
And I think we get distracted, or we can get down from social media too. It can affect our our mood. And so if we're scrolling through and we're like, crap, my house is a mess, and look at her house is so put together, and my kids don't clean up after themselves, her kids clean up, you know, and then it just makes you like just get down, and then you're easier to snap at your kids.
The thing you just hit on was like boundaries, like setting those time limits and boundaries, and I don't think we realize how fast 20 minutes can go. You're like, I was only like 3 scrolls in. What? 20 minutes is up? I was just barely starting my stalking. How is this happening?
It's true. Well, a couple more things on the list they mentioned was responsibilities. You know, we don't really give our kids clear responsibilities because we're all just doing our thing on our devices and stuff. Balanced nutrition and adequate sleep. I know that when I'm on my phone more, or the TV's on and we eat dinner with the TV on, we're usually up much later than I plan.
Yeah, that's true.
I've noticed that. And adequate nutrition, like when you're on devices, you eat more and you eat bad. It's like, oh, popcorn,
and you're on there longer than you
chips.
thought, and then you don't cook dinner.
Yes, that happens too.
Drive-through.
It happens. So the last thing on the list that said that we're not giving our kids is creative play, social interaction, opportunities for unstructured times, and boredom. And I thought that's interesting. It's like we need to give them opportunities to like
Be bored
and use their mind and create. It's like if we're always giving them a distraction, they don't learn how to create.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that's another thing Instagram can do. You're like, oh, this mom's out on this activity and they're taking them to the park and they're doing this thing. And it's like we think our kids need to constantly have something to do. But that's like when I had the most fun when I was little. I was like, I'm going to go out and dig a mud hole. And then that like, it sparks that creativity and gets their mind working when they are bored. Adults being bored, not such a good idea. Kids being bored, good idea.
I don't know. I think it can be the same though. It's like that's when we give our minds time to like, I don't know, create.
I mean, think
things.
about driving in the car.
Yeah.
Like that's when I start like ideas start popping into my head, and that could be like a boring time, but that's when you like actually have time to think, and you're not being like stimulated by something that isn't important. You're actually like looking out into nature. You're like thinking about things. So same with kids, like just send them outside to play. There's nothing better than watching your kid like take random things and create a village and play with things that aren't even guys, but they pretend they are.
All right, so we've talked about all the things that we're doing wrong as parents. So this article, by the way, we'll probably just leave it in the description below so that you guys can go and read it, because there's a lot in here. It's a really helpful, inspiring, uplifting article.
I'm gonna start each morning reading this article.
I know. Okay, remember these things. Okay, so it says, what can we do about it? The first one says, get back to what we did before phones. Back to when our parents did back to what our parents did when we were young. Spend time playing games with our kids. Spend dinner time talking. Even turn off the TV when you're making dinner and making dinner a family thing. And I've thought about this, and I think that when you first start making changes like this, you're gonna get pushback. Like it's gonna be hard, and I think that's a lot of the reason why sometimes I don't, is I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a fight, and I don't wanna fight. But sometimes you have to fight. So making dinner without the TV on, or a phone, or tablets. It also says use any car time, like you were saying, to talk to your kids. Like maybe even make car time rule that you have no phones.
Yeah, which is a good one anyways.
You know what's so interesting about that? At like a year ago or so, maybe more than that, I was asking Braylee like what her favorite time with me was, and she said in the car, because I'm not distracted, and we always talk in the car.
That's awesome.
So that was like really eye-opening to me. I'm like, that's the only time that I'm like really there.
But you can also look at it positively, like, I'm glad that she
some
loved
time,
that
but
time.
It's the worst when they're like, I'm like, you really have to think about it.
Like there's no time.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of go over the next ones real quick, and then you guys can go ahead and look at the article if you want to know more about it. But it says, have your kids do chores. Responsibilities increase their self-worth and actually will increase their self-esteem because they need a purpose. And even though it is a fight, when they see themselves like accomplishing things, it will create that shift. And it is fight sometimes, so you just do the fight.
And then make sure you tell them good job.
Yes.
Praise them for that.
Be sure that your child is getting enough sleep. This is a very important thing because I think a lot of times the screen time, it does take away from our sleep, and it also makes the sleep that we do have less restful. And there are studies on that. I can't point you to any of them right now, but I know I've read. Don't keep a lot of junk food in the house. Limit junk food. And it's funny that all of these came in play with the cell phone. Yeah. But it's true, like just making all these little steps can mean a lot. Take away electronics and tell your kids to go play. And it even said in here to for the parents to, you know, when your kids get home from school, maybe make a rule for yourself that from 3 to 9, you do not be on any of electronics. Like be totally present with them and play with them and cook with them and do, you know, their chores with them, teach them how to do chores. That's one thing that I noticed too is like I tell the kids to go clean the bathroom and they don't do a good job because I haven't like been very meticulous about how teaching them. And sometimes I feel like, well, I don't want to be that ornery of a mom, but I also am like, they need to know exactly how to do it and be expected.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we started filming today, but like sometimes we think that our kids know what we're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like we think that they understand what we're communicating, but they don't know, like to them, what's cleaning. Like go clean your room. To Cooper, that's like pick anything up on the floor and put it on any object. So I walk into his room and like everything that was on the floor is just now placed in different areas. I'm like, this is not cleaning. One thing my dad was really good about, and it was kind of annoying, but every time we would do a chore, he would reteach us how to do that chore. So I remember by the time I was like age 12, my dad was still teaching me how to vacuum. Like, Dad, I know how to vacuum.
You know now.
But now I'm very great at vacuuming, and I actually love that time with him, and that he would always teach me that. And then it was like, every time that I was asked to do a chore, I knew it was expected of me and I knew how to do that. And sometimes I think it's easy to like throw some Clorox wipes at the kids. I'm like, go clean your room. And they're like, what's your clean? What's your definition of cleaning, you know? And that's good time to teach, like to have just time with them is teaching them.
Something that I try to do is like Braylee's job is doing the dishes and she has to do them every day. And it is a fight every day. But after she's done, I always tell her like, thank you so much for doing that. It really, really helps me because then I can get the rest of the kitchen clean really quickly. And I always try to tell my kids, thank you for helping me in that way, like cleaning the car out, putting their shoes away, because it does help. Like we want our house to look nice, it feels good. And if you guys put effort into these things, then it helps me to be able to, you know, do the tasks that I need to get done. So I don't know if that is correct.
I 100%, I think that like you said, it makes kids feel like they have a purpose. When you're thanking them, they realize like they fit into the purpose of the home and that helps, you know?
And I think kids always, like I've noticed with my kids, they always really want to help me. And so I think when you're telling them like, that really helped me, thank you. Then they're like, I helped my mom today.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Such a good
I know, we
article.
could say all the things.
Yeah. So I hope you guys will go and read it and give us suggestions in the comments below what you guys do. Any thoughts about, you know, maybe replacing media with something else in your home, whatever it may be. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. I feel like we could have 8 more episodes around
Going on
this.
for hours about it.
Yep. So I'm sure we will. Anyways, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.